So this video is actually going to be on graduation weekend from Lackland Air Force Base. If you've checked out the previous two videos that I did, the first one is on the enlistment process, the second one is on basic training in general. This one is going to be on about graduation weekend from basic. And I'll be sure to put the graduation video in the description bar. Hopefully you guys have seen it. It's a 25-minute long video, but it's actually like magical. I watch that video every so often just to kind of feel the feelings that I felt that morning again. So graduation is always on a Friday, but there are kind of several events that happen on Thursday as well, which is a really magical day. I flew down to San Antonio the Wednesday before graduation, stayed there that evening, and that was my last phone call from Blake I got then. I was in the hotel, and he wanted to make sure that me and his family kind of all got there safe and sound and everything was okay. Thursday morning, you have kind of a very early morning. The Airman's run happens on Thursday morning. It's the first time that you get to kind of see your airmen for the first time in 8.5 weeks, and you get to see them jog and sing their jodies, which is kind of their cadence songs that they sing when they're running to stay in tune with one another. The Airman's run is a really, really special thing to see. So I highly suggest you get there for Thursday. Thursday was like the best day. We woke up at the crack of dawn. We must have got woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe even earlier. I think I woke up at 5. I couldn't sleep that night. I was too excited to see Blake. Got some breakfast, and we started driving to the base, which was about less than a mile away, but we were worried about actually getting on the base. We didn't know if there was going to be a line at the gate. Plus, we had no idea where it was on base, where he was going to be running, or where we would be standing or anything. So we got there early. We got on base, and we tracked everything, everywhere down where we were supposed to be, and they kind of run down this long strip of roadway that's closed off to traffic. You stand alongside the roadway, you line the road, and they start running down, and they're all in their squadrons, in their training squadrons, and their flights is how they say. They're in their flights, and they're all just running in formation, and they look beautiful. And it was such a sight for sore eyes. You have to keep your eye out though, because sometimes they're really hard to identify. I couldn't see Blake when he came down originally down the roadway, but what they do is they come over a bridge, they go down the roadway, and down to the end of the road where we were at the very corner basically. Then they take a left, and they go and they kind of make a big box. So it's kind of like an S shape. I couldn't see him when he was coming down the main strip, but I know that they were turning, and so I ran across the field and I saw him that time. And in the graduation video, you actually see him turn around and wave, which was really helpful because I don't think I would have seen him if he didn't do that. Airman's run is at 8 a.m. and then there's a couple briefings after the Airman's run that are optional to go to, but are kind of suggested. It's basic information, so like really simple stuff like, make sure you have your base pass on you at all times, which they will mail home to you at some point. They mail home the passes to you. You use it to get on the base along with your ID. And those briefings, they basically just talk about really stuff that I had been Googling for 8.5 weeks, so I knew all the answers to already, but I think it was helpful for some people. The next thing that happens is the coin ceremony. The coin ceremony is when you get all of the squadrons and all of the flights lined up, and the MTIs, the people that have been screaming at them for 8.5 weeks, present them with a coin. There's kind of a big pause in between the Airman's run and the coin ceremony. We went to where the coin ceremony happens, and we picked out some seats because we knew that it was going to fill up really quick. We picked our seats, and they do the coin ceremony, which is about maybe an hour long or so. I think it finished at right around 11:45. I'm not really sure. They do the coin ceremony, and they release the visitors, which means you get to run down from the stands and give your airmen a huge hug and a kiss. That's the first thing you get to do. They cannot move from their spots until you touch them. You have to touch them to get them to move. So that was awesome. On Thursday, they are not allowed off base, so they have to stay on base. You can go have pizza with them or Subway or whatever if they're hungry. You can't go back to their dorm, but you can stay with them all day long, which is what we did. We just kind of did our thing together. The next day is Friday. They have their official graduation ceremony, which is when they're all dressed in their airman blues. They have their cover on, and they're all dressed up, and they look beautiful, and it's the moment where they actually officially become airmen. I think it started at 9 o'clock in the morning is when it started, I'm pretty sure, and typically you get on the base and they put you on buses and they take you to the parade grounds, which is where the graduation ceremony typically happens. However, it didn't happen for us because it had been raining so much in San Antonio recently that it just was kind of underwater. So they had their own individual ceremonies at the squadron, which is where we were, which is why I got a couple comments saying on the graduation video that was like, why aren't you at the parade grounds for that? And it's because it was underwater. We did it at their dorm instead. They do their oath of enlistment and everything, and they are airmen, and you can run up and hug them again so they can move. This is Friday, which means it's the first day that they are allowed off base. You can take them in the general San Antonio area, and there's a good amount of stuff to do. We went to, what did we do that day? I think we had a couple errands that Blake had to run on base more than anything else. I think he had to get some things, his rank sewn on a lot of his clothing, which is what we did. So we got some food. What else did we do? Oh, there was a hockey game that night. If there is an event in town on graduation weekend, typically the airmen are allowed to stay out past their curfew, which is at 8 o'clock at night. They have to be back in their squadron at 8 o'clock at night on Friday and Saturday. We went back to the hotel and slept a little while. He was tired, wanted a nap, and that was totally fine because I got to cuddle and I was a happy camper. Saturday morning comes along, you can pick them up at 9 a.m. Do anything you want with them for the entire day as long as they're back in their squadron by 8 o'clock that night. Sunday, Blake's flight was actually awarded honor flight, which means that they were exceptional. Not that they didn't get honor flight, they got warrior flight, which is pretty close anyway. They did really, really well throughout basic training, and so they actually got to go out on the town on Sunday as well. But usually for most airmen, they have to stay on base on Sunday. Blake did not have to. He got to stay out on Sunday as well. But the curfew was still 6 o'clock at night that day. It was earlier. And that was actually the evening that I flew home. So we brought him back earlier anyway. Graduation weekend is one of the most incredible weekends of my entire life. It was unbelievable. Seeing your significant other for the first time in 8.5 weeks when you got so used to being away from them it's unbelievable. I think back to it and it was magical. That whole weekend was just completely magical. One thing I was really disappointed about though was that they have to be in their uniform at all times on the weekend, and in their uniform they cannot show any PDA whatsoever, which means I couldn't hold his hand when we were walking around town. I couldn't give him a kiss on the cheek at all times, and it was kind of a bummer, but I could when we were in our hotel, and that's all I really cared about. So, I don't know, I think that's about it. If you have any questions about graduation weekend, just write them below. I stayed at the Holiday Inn, which was about a mile away from the base. It was so easy to get to and so close to everything. So, I got a question asking if there was hotels on base. There are 2, I believe. However, they fill up so quickly, you probably will have a hard time getting a reservation, especially because they don't suggest you buy your plane tickets or book hotel rooms until about 2 or 3 weeks before the actual graduation, in the event that your airman gets recycled or washed back. If something happens, if he hurts himself, if he does something really, really, really bad, then he gets pushed back. And if that is something that happens to your airman, you don't want to have to pay for a flight that you're not on. I would not suggest staying on base, however, it is an option. If you can get a reservation, go for it. We did rent a car for that weekend in San Antonio. Definitely makes getting around a lot easier. I feel like I'm missing a lot, so if you have any questions about graduation weekend at all, then just write them below and I'll definitely get back to you guys. I hope this was helpful, and stay tuned for more videos.